Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. I did 30 days vegetarian. I posted on Instagram that I was doing a 30-day challenge, and I kept it secret, though some of you last stream guessed correctly that I was going either vegan or vegetarian. It is 30 days of vegetarian in preparation for my next challenge, which technically I am a few days into, which is 30 days of vegan. So let's talk about why I went vegetarian and how that relates to me now trying vegan. So first and foremost, I had been contemplating veganism as an idea. And since this is a philosophy channel and my special interest is philosophy, I started to ask myself questions around the ethics and morals in relation to veganism and meat eating and environmental and all the things that normally goes into sort of the vegan journey. So in preparation for being vegan, I thought, well, let me be vegetarian first because I'm not sure how my body will react, right? I have fibromyalgia, I'm chronically ill. And then I wanted to see if I felt differently between being vegetarian and being vegan. I've watched countless videos of vegetarian versus vegans.
And I have a banner that says veganism is a moral obligation. What do you think about that statement?
There's a few problems with saying veganism is a moral obligation. And I'd say the first one probably stems from the fact, and the easiest one is that it's a slippery slope.
I've watched, a lot of debates between vegans and meat eaters.
God knows where. Hunting is better than buying meat from the grocery store, but I choose to not eat either kind of
That's
meat.
fine, and that's your choice.
Right, and it's fine for you to have your opinion and me to have my opinion,
100%.
but the reason that one person feels more passionately about it than the other is because one person's choices has victims and the other one's doesn't.
May I chime in? For 6 years I was on your side, so I completely understand where you guys are coming from. There are other victims that I could just list right now when I was vegan because I was having crazy temper tantrums. My mood was this.
And there does seem to be a discrepancy in terms of philosophically the difference between vegetarians and vegans. And so I thought, okay, let me make sure I do vegetarianism first before veganism, because what if I end up going vegan and I actually decide I'm vegan? I didn't want to have to then not have the experience of being vegetarian. So I went ahead and did 30 days of vegetarianism and it went really, really well. I ate a lot of really good food. I feel really good. I'm still working out the way that I normally do. And I feel like my body is reacting very well, or did react very well to the 30 days of vegetarianism. One thing in regards to my fibromyalgia that I'm sure might come up in the comment section is about my pain levels and if they might have gotten better with vegetarianism. I'm not really seeing a difference, if I'm going to be honest with you. During the vegetarian experience, I also worked to cut milk out of my diet because I knew I was already heading in that direction for the vegan month. So towards the very end of my vegetarian month, I basically moved over to soy and or oat milk. I've been prioritizing oat milk just because I like it better, but I will say both are great. It's just oat has a better flavor for my coffee than soy, I noticed, but soy has a great amount of protein. So for my protein girlies out there, soy is your best friend. So I didn't notice inflammation going down between the two, but I'm really curious if inflammation goes down for my 30 days of veganism, because that will be the real test since I've cut out all dairy. That will be very interesting to see, and I'll definitely keep note of it for that video. But I did write down some notes. So let's go ahead and reference those about my journey through vegetarianism because it impacted my budget, my everyday expectation of like how I would cook things, how I purchase things. And I think those things are kind of interesting. So let's talk about them. So first and foremost, vegetarianism was exciting for me because I'm a big fan of cooking and I really like exploring with different dishes. So I kept track of a lot of the meals that I made, but not every single meal that I made. I incorporated tofu into my diet and I was already on an anti-egg binge. So I do this thing where I either really love eggs and I binge them for like 6 months straight and eat nothing but eggs, or I go like 6 months off of eggs. And so during this 30 days, I was actually off eggs. So I didn't have to incorporate eggs into my diet, but I ate a lot of cheese and I ate a lot of butter. In particular, I ate a lot of cheese, mostly because I was mourning the loss of cheese. I think I felt sad that it was going to go away eventually with the veganism. So for the 30 days of vegetarianism, I made sure to really enjoy cheese and I have no regrets in regards to that. Now, how this impacted my daily life in terms of meal preparation wasn't much. I still cook on average between 2 to 3 hours a day, unless I've, made enough food for leftovers, and then maybe that goes down to an hour a day. But I'm not opposed to cooking a few hours a day. I mean, I work from home, I work for myself. So it's easier and more accessible to me. The grocery store is a few minute walk away. I have things that are just accessible to me that allow me to not feel much of a difference, I feel. Also, my partner does the primary grocery shopping, so I could give them a list of things to get me and they could get it for me. So overall, changing my diet didn't change how long it took me to cook my diet. I still ate pastas and I really enjoyed transforming tofu into different meals. I've eaten vegan and vegetarian over the years just on occasion. I've gone to a lot of vegetarian vegan restaurants. I've enjoyed cuisine from around the world. Even in Assyrian culture, we make like dolma a lot. And you guys know how much I love dolma. And we even for Lent, because Assyrians are often Catholic, they don't do meat dolma. So they make vegetarian dolma. So it wasn't like I was missing out on too much. Though there were a few ethnic-oriented meals I couldn't eat, like I couldn't eat kubeba, hummus kubi. So that is like meat in meat in meat. Couldn't eat that. Couldn't have meat dolma. I couldn't have like my regular chicken meals. I couldn't have things that I definitely was used to eating. Can you hear the sizzle? Some sea bass and carrots. I also, if you guys know, love making my own homemade beef jerky. No beef jerky this month. So there were things that definitely were missing, but to be honest with you, they were kind of better for my budget. Cooking time and everything kind of the same. Budget basically the same. Sometimes I'd save a few more dollars here and there, and that was really great. But the budget differences were there. So as an example, when I make beef jerky, I spend about €26 for anywhere between like 2 kilos of beef or maybe a little less. And that gives me like 2 days worth of beef jerky for me and my partner. So when I make beef jerky, it comes out delicious. We love it. It's vibes. But it is a lot of money for 2 days of beef jerky. Now, keep in mind, we as a family, we budget our food, we budget everything we do. And we're on a relatively strict budget right now because we're trying to attain some financial goals, as many of us are. And one of the things we've done is create a food budget that allows us to get our calories in and our food desires without splurging or being tempted to try to go top shelf unnecessarily. So often in our food budget, I don't eat steak. It's too expensive. It's like €11 for like a T-bone steak or like a slab of meat that's going to fill me for like a day. And so for me, that's just not very cost effective. It doesn't make sense. It's not efficient. So with my €50 a week budget, that's what I have individually. We each have like €50. I take that €50 and I transform it into enough meals for 7-day period that makes me feel like I have leftovers, I'm sustained, I'm full. And on a vegetarian diet, I was able to buy so much more food off that €50 because vegetables and rice, not as expensive. Our tofu, not as expensive. Meat is just so much more expensive, which I feel is pretty common and expected. I don't think anyone expected a vegetarian diet to be more expensive, though I do hear people making the argument that veganism is very expensive.
Veganism is for the privileged.
I personally believe a vegan diet, if you actually want to thrive and be healthy on this lifestyle, it's not cheap. It is not the most affordable diet at all. And I will tell you, being a carnivore, eating only meat, eating only animal foods, my grocery bill is less than when I was shopping for vegan.
And I'll just tell you this right now, I don't know what you're eating, but that's just not true for my lived experience. And I have a feeling it's because people are eating frozen food, prepackaged food. They're eating things that are convenient for them, so they're paying that convenient tax. I cook for myself, like I said. I'm also privileged enough to work from home, so I have those hours in the day to cook for myself. We also don't have children. We have just time. That's what we did on purpose. On purpose, we built a life that gave us time because, as we know, time is everything, right? Time to spend time with your family and your friends and hobbies and things you want to do. And one of the things I really want to do is cook. Cooking is really important for me. It's definitely my me time. I love coming up with different recipes. So during this process, it was really fun for me to come up with all these different recipes. And so here's what I did on this vegetarian 30-day. I decided what I wanted to eat. So I'd say, I really want some tacos tomorrow. Tacos sound really good. And I'm also gluten-free. So I'm dealing with vegetarian, gluten-free, and I still want to eat whatever I want to eat. So how do I do that? Okay, so I wanted tacos. And I was like, I really want tacos. How do I make a good vegetarian taco? And then I would just Google. I'd go on TikTok, I'd go online, and I'd Google recipes. And the way that I personally consume a recipe is just like visual. Sometimes I look at ingredients lists, but I just need to know the idea around a recipe and I can basically recreate it to my liking, of course. So I looked up gluten-free taco, so corn tortillas and brown beans and like a salad and, you know, tofu or cucumber or, you know, whatever I want to fill the taco in. I just purchased it, created multiple meals out of the ingredients I would buy. And then all of a sudden I had enough food, you know, for a few days. Like I could spend like 20 euro on 3 days worth of food. I didn't have enough room in my body to eat all of the vegetables I could end up needing even to reach my calorie point. So one of the things I ran into that was sort of difficult was actually getting enough calories because I would get full eating all these vegetables and all these things. So I ate more pasta and I used more butter and I used more olive oil and I ate more nuts, and it was kind of nice. It kind of felt like I was spoiling myself a little bit. So I eat a lot of hazelnut butter with like corn crackers, and I was eating honey, of course, because I was vegetarian. So I was eating a lot of honey and I was really enjoying that process. I think when I went into the vegetarian challenge, I genuinely thought I would sort of run out of food ideas. Even though I was pretty confident I wouldn't, I still thought, oh man, what if I kind of run out of that feeling? Because listen, let me tell you a story. When I was living with my farm brother, so I have a farm brother, and he has a little family farm for his kids and wife. And I was with him for a time working on the farm to kind of like figure myself out 5 years ago or so. And, you know, we did slaughter animals. We ate the animals the same day. We stored them and ate them months later. I was there. I saw it. Like we participated in what I would call like ethical slaughtering. The animals were fed the best, most organic food. Even his dogs eat like really quality food. They were spending like $13K a month just to have this little farm happen for them. He works for himself. You know, he's in machining. He has an ability to work from home and farm. So the farm wasn't for money. The farm was for the family, but he had a regular job, right? So he worked his regular job, and then him and his wife had this little family farm for their kids and stuff. They had got their chickens produced eggs. And it was a really cool experience being a part of it. But I remember one time my sister-in-law, who I love, cooked us dinner. And we sat down for dinner and I looked at the table and I said, where's the meat? And she goes, what do you mean? I was like, there's no meat on this table. Where's the dinner? And she goes, oh, we're just doing like a vegetarian kind of vibe today. And I was like, oh. And I looked at my brother and he looked at me and we looked at her and I was like, oh. And, you know, a part of it is, I think, in Assyrian culture, like the main dish has like some sort of meat, protein. But years later, now that I look at this Brittany who's trying vegetarianism out to see if she likes it, I'm remembering back to that feeling of feeling like I'm never going to feel full off a vegetarian diet. But girl, I have felt so full. The last meal I made myself with cheese before I went vegan for this 30-day vegan challenge I'm doing currently is I made chickpea burgers, okay, smothered in sauces, absolutely delicious, fried it, okay, melted cheese on it, put it between two gluten-free, slices of bread, and just the whole time. It was so good. And my partner's like, are you enjoying that? I was like, I am enjoying this. I felt so full and so satisfied. And it just makes me laugh that Brittany 5 years ago, who couldn't even imagine a vegetarian meal feeling fulfilling, now, I feel so satisfied. When I made pastas, shredded tofu, fried tofu. Look, I made all of these meals in the last 30 days for this vegetarian challenge, and I felt deeply satisfied with basically all of them. And if I made a meal I didn't like, I either transformed it into something else or I just ate it anyways and said, what are you going to do? Because, we're not trying to waste food here to the best of our ability. So, it was a learning curve, but what I learned was something about myself. That one, I could go from being a girl who swore she would never feel satisfied without meat to feeling more than satisfied. And two, I learned something that gave me a personal bubble pop that might be something you already know, but I didn't realize, and hear me out, because as a girl who works out, I always felt like I had to get my protein from my chickens. This very mid physique has been fueled by the death of so many chickens, let me tell you. Okay, the butcher at our local butcher shop knows I need my chicken. Like, Brittany is the chicken customer, okay? That's how much they expect. They know I make beef jerky and they know I eat chicken. They're probably wondering where I've been, honestly. But it's one of those things where I thought I had to get my protein through meat. But then I watched a documentary, and I watched a lot of documentaries over the last month. I'm continuing to watch them as well. But I didn't actually understand that the animals we're eating get the protein from the plants they're eating.
The only thing that didn't really fit was B12, an important vitamin that everyone kept warning me you could only get from animal foods. It turns out that B12 isn't made by animals after all. It's made by bacteria that these animals consume in the soil and water. Just like with protein, animals are only the middlemen. Before industrial farming, farm animals and humans could get B12 by eating traces of dirt on plant foods or by drinking water from rivers or streams. But now, because pesticides, antibiotics, and chlorine kill the bacteria that produce this vitamin, even farm animals have to be given B12 supplements. And up to 39% of people tested, including meat eaters, are low in B12. As a result, the best way for humans to get enough B12, whether they eat animal foods or not, is simply to take a supplement.
And so I was like, wait, why don't we cut out the middleman, right? Very typical argument made in vegetarian vegan circles, but new to me and new to my brain. And so I was like, oh, why do I think I need to eat meat to get protein? And a big part of that is the meat industry, right? We humans over all of these years have really, I think, corrupted our relationship with food to the point where we like kind of messed up on how we consume food. And I'll get into that in my veganism video, because I think the veganism video is going to be much more philosophical, a lot more argumentation about the ethics around veganism. But one thing I've learned through this whole process is humans have truly corrupted. And, we are nature itself, so I understand we're in this cycle, but we've really kind of ruined somehow food. Like we've made something that's so simple and so obvious, so bad for us. I mean, the microplastics that are being found in our bodies, I mean, we really did kind of mess up.
Researchers found tiny plastic particles in human brain samples equal to about a plastic spoon's worth. They then compared it to samples from 2016, and the amount had jumped by 50%. Scientists say plastics can impact human health, but it's still unclear if these particles cause damage in the brain.
Now, I believe human beings are animals evolved over time. So we ourselves are nature. Like, I don't think we're the main character on planet Earth. I think we're just a part of the ecosystem. But I think a lot of humans think they're the main character. I think we come up with stories about God and God creating us, and that allows us to fuel our main character syndrome.
Forgive me here if I don't want to come across as rude or anything like that. But before, I thought you said, so you said factory farming is cruel.
Yeah. And cruelty can be justified.
But now you're saying cruelty can be justified if you're going to eat the animal, is what your position is, yeah?
Yeah.
If we can't even agree that being cruel to animals is bad, then we won't really have to talk about animal rights, which is what I advocate for. I advocate for the rights of the animal, their right to life. Even if you say, if you shot a human in the back of the head, that's murder. You've basically taken away their right to exist. You violated their rights. And it doesn't matter if
to a human, yes. Shooting a person in the head is murder, yeah. Thou shalt not kill. Okay.
And you violated their human rights, haven't you? You violated their right to life, essentially, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, the Human Rights Act is a very real thing. There was no Human Rights Act up until the 1960s, is it? I think the European Union came up with it. But no, I don't think that animals get the same rights as humans. No way. Absolutely not.
Okay.
So yeah, the unfortunate last 30 seconds of a pig's life where it suffers in a gas chamber is completely fine with me. It really is, because that's how it goes from farm to table. There's no happy way of doing it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like for me, if they didn't suffer in a gas chamber, it's wrong to murder them. Like for me, similar to murdering a human being. But we can talk about.
So how should we murder them?
Well, I don't think we should murder them. I don't think it's morally justifiable, because I've been vegan for 10 years and haven't had to stab an animal in the throat yet. Since I've been vegan. Now,
I stabbed it in the chest, for the record.
I've seen you. I know that you're on Shipwrecked and you were advocating for killing the animals on the island.
I did kill them.
Now you're not on an island now. You're actually multi-millionaire and you can eat whatever you want.
Everyone knows what a human is, but I would say a human is made in the image of God. That's what I would say. And a pig is not made in the image of God. It certainly is not made in the image of God. Neither is a cow. In fact, cows and pigs are made in the image of what humans made them into. So as a religious person, there's no argument you could possibly give me to see any lower life form or any animal besides a human as equal to a human, because animals aren't made in the image of God.
But I think, even if you take an atheistic perspective, you might say like humans are at the top of the food chain and so we're the main character. Either way, it's okay to emotionally feel like the main character, but I think to humble ourselves, we need to zoom out and remember that we exist on the planet just like any other animal. We are not different from the animals in terms of our philosophical value, our moral value, our ethical value. We're not different in terms of our, being. No one's better than others. Like a bear isn't more important than me. Like there's no reason to feel that that's the right conclusion unless you've been taught that, unless you've come to believe that. So if you believe like humans are automatically better than animals, that's definitely a belief you can have, but I'm not sure what it's based on. I'm not sure where you're getting that. Now, that's not to say that given circumstances in which you would choose human life or animal life, which one would you pick? I think that's a totally different argument. We'll talk about it in the vegan video. But when we're talking about just the fact that we exist, I think it's clear that we exist on Earth as a part of Earth. We are not separate from her. So much like the tree that's grown for thousands of years or the human, we exist the same in that origin sense, right? So something I learned along this journey was to be open to the fact that there wouldn't be a perfect answer, because obviously I didn't just become vegetarian for funsies. I did it in preparation of being vegan, and not permanently vegan, but to try out a challenge of veganism. So these two have to relate to in my mind, like vegetarianism versus veganism. Most people think they're just diets, and they can be, but they're also philosophies. There's a philosophy, a belief system, a sort of like a moral code that vegans live by, and it extends past diet. So I'm pretty lucky in this regard. I've been making sure my shampoos and conditioners were cruelty-free since I was a kid. The ones I have in my shower right now say vegan on them. I think the bare minimum I can always do as a person is just, as convenient as not thinking about it, is just buying the shampoos that make sense to me within my values. I also grew up in a really religious home. So my parents made conscious decisions to do things all the time that kind of coincided with their values. As an example, my parents don't shop on Sundays. Why don't my parents shop on Sundays? Because it's the Lord's Day. It's the day of rest. So they dedicate that day to Christ. They go to church, they come home, they spend time with the family. We usually barbecue. Sundays at my house are barbecue days. So you can imagine, as a family, we've eaten a lot of meat over the years, and it's delicious. It's absolutely delicious. I'm not even going to play with you. It is so good. So I grew up in a family that wasn't afraid of making decisions that to others might feel very inconvenient, but to us is just so normal. We don't think about it. So me trying to get like cruelty-free soaps, just like, I don't even think about it that much. It's just like turn around, look at the label. And even my transition into gluten-free, that's for my health. I noticed that I was just having really bad reactions to gluten. I was swelling up. My stomach was hard. I was feeling bloated. I couldn't consume, like if I ate food just a little bit too much, I was in bed for just hours feeling like horrible. I was in so much pain. So I took gluten out of my diet, and I assume it has something to do with the fibromyalgia. Obviously, hopefully we'll find some better answers. I'm assuming it has to do with that. When I took gluten out of my diet, people were like, oh, that's so hard. And it is harder, I think, than being vegetarian, if I'm going to be totally honest. I think gluten-free became harder because even when you're vegan, there's so many vegan snacks that are gluten. So it is a little bit harder in a sense. But at the same time, I've gotten really good at making gluten-free bread. I've been really good at, finding gluten-free products. I've been very good at just eating regular food. So I also grew up in a culture where food meant like salads and vegetables and rice and meats, like things you actually made. We were an ingredients household growing up. So I think it's probably easier for me to transition to vegetarianism or veganism in a sense, because my family, we were raised learning how to cook things. And I don't primarily eat fast food. I don't like frozen food primarily. It depends on if I find certain things I like. So it's just easier for me, I think, to do this challenge and not feel so burdened by it and to enjoy it. So one of the arguments I keep seeing from vegetarians and vegans is that it's just too hard and inconvenient to keep it up. I'm not having that lived experience, but I do think it's because I can cook. I genuinely think it's so much easier, that I enjoy it, that I look forward to it, that I'm excited by it. I couldn't imagine trying to do this and not having any idea how to utilize vegetables or fruits or different kinds of, I couldn't imagine how overwhelming that must be to try to cook and you don't even know the first thing, right? So as a content creator, if there are any particular things you have always wanted to learn how to cook and you don't know how to do it, Like, I'm happy to incorporate some, not recipes, because I'm not a food channel, but I can link you to cooks on the internet. I can try to incorporate it into members' videos. I want to help you have a better relationship with your food and specifically your budget. I want you to feel powerful when you go to the grocery store. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed at the grocery store that you don't have a choice in what you eat because you don't know how to cook anything. I want you to feel like an hour a day in the kitchen is going to save you so much money and time in the long run because you're going to be so much healthier and it's going to help with your fatigue. So if you have any comments or questions in that regard, let me know. But I just, I don't want to take for granted the fact that I've been doing this since I was a kid. But I also want to give people those skills because it's never too late to learn how to cook. It will truly save you a lot of money and time in the long run. With that said, I think overall this 30-day challenge has given me an opportunity to reconceptualize my understanding of consumption, environmental factors, which I'm actually deeply concerned with. And though I accept we're animals on a planet and we're all going to die and we're all going to be moments in history that no one really remembers, I'll remember me. And I just want to make sure that when I die, I feel like I did my best to harm reduce. It was never about being perfect, but it definitely was about harm reduction. So if I can participate in harm reducing, I'd really like to. I can make a commitment to a 6 to 12 month pledge, or I can do a month-long pledge of, harm reduction. As an example, I'm not buying from Amazon. I can't guarantee I won't buy from them in 5 years, but I can tell you for the next year, I ain't buying nothing on Amazon. Okay. I don't care how inconvenient it is. We're not doing it. Okay. Do I want to get Prime and watch the new Laverne Cox show? Absolutely. Am I going to do it? Absolutely not. And look, it's not about being perfect. If you watch Twitch streamers, Amazon owned, you're not a bad person. If you give those people money, if those people make money, you're not a bad person, right? It's not about being a bad person. It's about in which ways in my life can I harm reduce in a way that's just easier for me. So it's just easier for me to not do anything Amazon. I can do that, right? It's just easier for me to not buy fast fashion. I can manage, right? It's just easier for me to contribute in my small, minuscule, maybe useless way, knowing that at least I feel like I did the better thing, right? So I never want you to feel like you have to be perfect because nobody is. But I also want you to feel empowered enough to make a change because I do think it changes things, even if it's small and over time. If you look at the history of humanity, if you really look at us as a history, then on the micro, it feels like we're in a really bad place right now. We went 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, and we're in the 2 steps back era, but we will go forward again. And on the macro, if you zoom out to just viewing human history, we have gotten better over time. We're just like, it's very hard right now. Food prices are crazy. Gas prices are crazy. Housing is insane. The world is in conflict. Like, people are suffering. People are being. It is a very tough time right now, but it does get better because we get better. And I just want to be a part of the we that gets better because I do think it makes a huge difference. So again, this 30-day challenge was definitely more than just changing my diet. It was asking myself, how am I going to play a role while I'm alive in my own life and in the life of my neighbors? And so here we are, 30 days over, and I definitely enjoyed the process. And if you have any comments or questions, I'd love to know what's been on your mind in regards to this in your own life. Have you thought about veganism or vegetarianism? Have you watched the documentaries? Have you seen the way the environment's being impacted by the meat industry? How do you feel about it? Because I definitely know if my neighbor knocked on my door and said, hey, Britt, I made you some dolma. Would you like it? I'm not going to tell her I'm vegetarian, vegan. I'm going to be like, yes, girl, I'm going to eat that. I'm going to eat because, as a person who used to take food to her neighbors pretty often, and as a person who received food from her neighbors, the last thing I would do, regardless of my choices, is deny a neighbor sharing food. And sometimes I think people forget that harm reduction isn't about being perfect. It's about doing the right thing in the moment. And I just want to make sure that I'm trying my best to do the right thing in the moment. Hello, everyone. This is a weird edit into the podcast from future Brittany. I'm currently editing Brittany. And as I'm sitting here enjoying my vegan coffee and wondering, why do I feel like I'm missing something in this podcast? It's because I forgot to mention the biggest blunder that I made while going 30 days vegetarian. And that was continuing to take my collagen. Collagen is basically animal product. It's beef. You often can get collagen from enjoying like beef broth soup, beef bone soup, which is usually what I would do naturally is I'd go to the butcher, and ask them for a bunch of bones, and I would eat that's how I would get my collagen. And then I went to our health food store and got me collagen, and I would put a scoop a day into my water and drink it. And about more than halfway through my 30-day vegetarian, one of my viewers was like, "Oh, have you figured out a replacement for your collagen if you go vegan?" And my brain went, wait. Because, of course, you're just putting this powder into your water. You're not thinking about it very much. But, of course, it's not vegetarian. Of course, it's not vegan. So now that I've done more research, I found natural, quote, ways to get your collagen, though, of course, whether or not this supplement works to the extent that we think it does. I found that as I had been using it over the last 6 months, an improvement in my nails, an improvement in my hair. But now that I'm going on this vegetarian vegan adventure for a while, I'm not going to keep using it. This is an empty container and I won't be rebuying it. And also perfect timing because it just went up €5 and I don't know why. So it's kind of like perfect timing, but I forgot to mention this in the original recording of the podcast. So here I am, future editing Brittany, asking myself like, how did I forget to mention this complete blunder? So technically, the one of the few animal products I had during my vegetarian 30-day, cheese, butter, yogurt, all of that stuff, and collagen. Kind of a big oopsies, but that's honestly what happened. So I just wanted to make sure I shared it and I didn't forget to mention it because I'm sure some of you during my 30-day vegetarian noticed I was still taking my collagen. I was talking about it on the stream and it felt weird not to mention that I made that blunder. So okay, back to the pod. With that said, please let me know if you have any comments or questions, and I will see you for my next podcast, which who knows what that will be about. But in about a month, I'll also have my vegan podcast. So if you have any questions about veganism or any resources you'd like me to check out, please let me know because I am really researching everything and I could use some help in what to read, what to listen to, what to watch. So I will see you in a month-ish for that podcast as well. Okay, guys, see you later. Bye.
In my head, in real life while in bed, my belly's being fed and I'm okay. I'm just fine, yet all I do is whine. Not to you in my mind, cause I know I don't make sense. I've been nothing but blessed, so why's my life a mess? Please tell me, cause I'm sick of thinking. Yeah, I'm sick of reaching out for the truth and living life as a fool.